wherever it is you are joining us from around the world. This is Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. I am Henry Igwebike. We'll be starting off with our newspaper headlines just before we get to our main conversation in a jiffy. But please do well to be part of what we do. You can always find and reach us at enterprisetvnews.com. You may equally like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. We're very honored to have with us, joining us via Zoom from Saitama in Japan, John Akirili. He is a public affairs analyst. Good morning to you, John, and welcome.
Good morning, my brother. Good morning to Nigerians. Good morning to viewers all over the world. And good morning to my brother in the studio. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Mr. John. So, and also we have Innocent Aduluba. He is a journalist and a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Innocent.
Good morning, Henry.
Thank
good
you.
morning, John. How is it out there in Japan?
It's cool, yeah. Good to have you.
Beautiful. All right, so let's kick off today with what's making rounds on the Daily Trust newspaper, that is. And we have tension in the Middle East. World leaders fume as Israel strikes kill over 400 in Gaza. And also we have 33 killed in Edo road crashes in 2 months. And on the bottom strip here, tuberculosis kills 71,000 Nigerians in 1 year. 400,000 cases recorded. John, I'd love to start with you on the global scene here. World leaders fume as Israel strikes kill over 400 in Gaza. What do you think is happening? Would we ever find a lasting end with the problem happening in the Middle East? I do not know. Is this supposed to be a curse? Because when we read what is happening historically from the Bible, for those who believe in it, it's like it's a transition of one generation, 1 century over another. The crisis keep continuing. What do you think is the problem here?
I think for us to have a global lasting peace, there are 2 contenders that must come to the table of negotiation. And just recently, a truce deal, was announced. But it's so sad that this truce deal did not come to the light of the day. And that's why you're having that kind of attack again coming from Israel to Gaza. And I think the world leaders are on the alert now, and they understand that just like the same way we have it in Russia and Ukraine, and then Trump has been calling for a lasting peace, and that the 2 agitators should come to the negotiation table. So for me, let's not even go by biblical. Let's go by what is actually happening presently. What I think they should do is go back to the negotiation table and look at the terms and conditions that will make them to have a lasting peace. And both parties involved must always learn to stick to negotiation and agreement, because it's on that note that we all can have that peace that we are clamoring for.
So very, very true. Innocent Aduluba, as much as we would love not to, go spiritual on this particular matter, because lots of people who are historians will, of course, go back to the root of the problem and where it has been coming from. Benjamin Netanyahu has always quoted that the ancestral land belongs to his fathers and his great-grandfathers, and therefore the people of Palestine do not have a stake in the land, which of course we know is the crux of the matter here. But with this recent attack, when it seemed like Palestinians are all going back to their homes, do you think we are about to see another a crisis that we would think had ended?
Well, it's a delicate issue. It tells you about the challenges not contemplated by the United Nations. I'm wondering if the scenario played out in Africa, if the world would look on and one African giant trample on another African minnow, so to speak. The claim by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over ancestral land may lack contemporary relevance.
Why?
Today there are Dutch boys, indigenously native to South Africa. There are in quote Negroid Germans in a fascist state like Germany. You find some Asiatics across the world are already gaining citizenship. You find maybe blacks, let me use that word, from Suriname, predominantly Dutch today. You find Nigerian immigrants, native, becoming, naturalizing as Americans and Canadians. So the drift of the global community today is not about using force to expel people because they are on your ancestral land. The United Nations is a conglomeration of countries united with a charter for global peace. And so even if Israel finds Palestinians in Gaza, force should be the last option. As we know, the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, have said that this recent strike, allegedly killing over 400 people, is attacking what it calls terror targets belonging to Hamas. Upon the ascension of office by Donald Trump as the President of the United States of America, there have been some uneasy calm people thought was leading to a truce. But Benjamin Netanyahu seemed to be somebody like cannot be tamed by the global community as it stands. I don't know if when he leaves office, he will be qualified to appear before the International Criminal Court. You look at those videos. Yes, it was wrong for Israel to be attacked by Hamas on October 7 in 2023. Yes. But the reprisal from Israel is like killing an ant with a sledgehammer. They bomb here, they bomb there. I think it's not in doubt that the might of Israel is more than that of Palestine. I think it's not in doubt. And that's where Israel should be cautious, if you ask me. Because the person you are carrying out this heavy bombardment of cannot retaliate on an equal scale. And women and children are the worst abandoned casualties on that battlefield.
Very, very true. John, women and children are the victims in some of these cases. Do you think the United Nations have lost its relevance? Because if the United Nations is there to regulate and to ensure that there's world peace, but the same United Nations can't even call Israel to question, then do you think there is still a bit of relevance embedded with the United Nations?
Well, the question you have asked me, time will tell. The same question, comes down to our own ECOWAS here in West Africa. ECOWAS is our own mini United Nations. And you see that some countries are because they feel that ECOWAS has lost its efficacy, the importance and the genuineness. And so they feel like they should leave the ECOWAS forum to form their own alliance. The same thing, I think, is something that will happen to United Nations, because the whole reason of becoming a member is for stability and global peace. And if you are a member of such an organization and we cannot still establish that global peace, then it means that the association or the organization, have lost its efficacy. And the Christian to say to you, what is the essence of having, a salt in your mouth that has lost its taste? He says, spit it out. So it means that as time goes on, it is being shown clearly to the world that United Nations is falling, aback based on the precedent and the fundamentals of forming the organization in the first place. So I think global peace is what everybody should always have in mind, and that is what we should all work towards.
All right, so very true. Let's get to the Guardian newspaper for a bit here. I know this particular story, we have it to be discussed in the main conversation, but if it's possible, let's just talk about a subset of that particular story. A Rivers pipeline explosion may cost $35.3 million lost daily as state of emergency begins. I'd love to start with you, John Akere, just before I get to Innocent. Of course, it will be our main conversation where, of course, we'll have the opportunity of fleshing that out. But speak to us on this, especially with regards to meeting our budget of 49.7 trillion naira. Remember, we still have a 14 trillion deficit that has to be borrowed from wherever. Do you think it's ever possible for us to meet that deadline?
I think for me it's a sad development coming up from Rivers State, being one of the subunit of the national that contribute greatly in terms of revenue that we use in funding the budget. Now, look at that amount of damage. Look at the amount we are going to use, and what we're going to lose. So for me, I think it is better if such disaster have been avoided, have been issued, because obedience is better than sacrifice. Now we have seen that when you don't obey, the sacrifice can be quantum. It can be so big and large. And so for me, it would have been better if we are able to get this money and use it judiciously for the betterment of Nigerians and not to repair vandalized pipelines. So for me, it's a sad story coming from River State.
Very true. Innocent Atulugba, $35.5 million. That's no small money.
But I want to ask,
yes,
before the explosion of or let me not call it vandalism, were we getting that amount per day?
Of course, it should, yeah. More
because
than
in
that.
Nigeria, it is when something goes bad, you hear the humongous amount that would be lost per day. If you call the gatekeepers to give us an account, would they testify that that's what they get
or more
per day? You understand? So this the exactitude is overlapping. But of course, Rivers is a state in the eye of the storm. An interesting political melting point in today's politics in Nigeria, and a sad one that has put question mark to the paradox of representation. In whose interest? Who are the priority? Is it the masses or the big political interest? And take it or leave it, there are people that stand to gain from what is going on, especially with regards to political parties. Because in this case, I'm extending out to the state of emergency. It is one political party versus the other. So, and the Jaws, let me come down to that, have make bold some threats that if their governor is not allowed to settle, they can, they will make the state also ungovernable. We cannot tell if these explosions are pointers. So we know that the Niger Delta is a restive place, and it's, how do they say it, let sleeping dogs lie. It's better to allow calm than to provoke restive youths who are managing their, how would I put it, who are on borrowed patience. They are managing to be calm, and you go there and stoke their fire.
Most especially made worse, of course, with the harsh economic realities that is.
Nowadays, if you say the country is hard, like we can see from the Usheritas case, you become a celebrity, or you become a celebrity felon that is being targeted by all the institutions. If you say a place, if you comment or positively or otherwise about the sanitation of a place, you become a celebrity infidel in the eye of all the, So, truth be told, the economy is, Nigerians are presently in an economic limbo where what you bought last week grudgingly is almost twice this amount next week, and you will still buy it. So and you wonder, that explosion, look at the amount they are telling us. That amount, I ask, my question is, while it was not exploded, was it solving, were the returns from it solving the right economic problems it was meant to solve? Because you hear dizzying amounts and things are still where they are, or even deteriorating further. So it's lots of question marks, Henry.
Very, very true. But let's get to the Punch newspaper. We have a litany of interesting stories here. Federal government deducts state's 800 billion naira allocation to pay foreign debt. One would wonder, are they paying that foreign debt on behalf of the Nigerian state? John, what is happening here? Are they helping the states to pay their foreign debt? Or what exactly is the issue here?
The thing is, Nigeria is such a country where, like I usually say on different fora, the accountability is key. Now you keep hearing of monies paying back loans and debt. Then you ask yourself, when was this money borrowed? What was this money used for? How did it impact the lives of people of the state? These are questions we are not asking. And I said until we come back to the basis where accountability and transparency is key. All of our leaders are culpable, and all of them are not free from this conversation. So the thing is, 800 billion. Now, when was the money borrowed? What was it used for? Can we still go back to those projects? Are they still in active service? The answer is no. It's only in Nigeria we keep hearing of people borrowing money, and then you cannot see one major project, one major infrastructure. I can say, okay, this is the one that was borrowed, this is what it's used for, and this is how you better the lives of people. Just like Innocent said there in the studio, we keep hearing of humongous amount of money for repair and all of sorts. But even when it was not damaged, are we raking such an amount of money? If yes, can you now compare the increase in that amount with the economic development? Can you compare that with growth in different sectors? The answer is no. The indices are not balanced. And so for me, it comes back to the area of accountability and transparency. At this point, we should know how much is the state are owing. We should know the money that was borrowed, what project has it been used for? How did the project impact the people? These are questions people should be asking, not paying back the loans, because they will still go back and borrow more money. And then you ask yourself, the ones we borrowed in the last 4 years, the last 6 years, the last 2 years, what was it used for? And then the onus goes now to the international organization to give this money. If you give people money and they cannot give you empirical fact and evidence of what they use the money for, and it's not to borrow them more, they have to tell that there's a connivance between the IMFs and the World Banks of this world and our political leaders in terms of putting Nigeria in that state of indebtedness that will keep paying back loans, and we are not even show anything in return as to what we've done with what we have borrowed.
Anyway, my comment on that is I've always asked, if I was on a 1 million naira salary, and I live a particular lifestyle, and then I lost my job, I'm now earning 450. Is the solution to borrow? Wouldn't I live where I'm paying with higher rent, move to a lower place, move my children from that school where 1 million? So must the government always borrow in the first place?
Well, they would always justify that. They would always justify that borrowing is not the problem when there is a strategic reason why it is borrowed, and they're always there to tell us how they can pay back.
No, look, most countries run budget deficits and then tighten their belt to run Spartan lifestyle to meet this. You borrow, you buy private jets. You borrow, look at how much you refurbish or build houses for vice president. You borrow, look at the largesse, the cost of Jeep vehicles for legislation. So he who goes borrowing goes sorrowing. 800 billion being defended at a FAAC meeting, native Nigerian extractive. This borrowing thing. And when a state announces or reads their budget, I used to ask, is this the budget of a country? Because when you go and look at those states, what is their economic capacity to generate returns on investment? So, and like John have said, were these states consulted? Because if the monies were meant for the state, invariably it was meant to cater for the masses in that state. And now there is a form of reduction of allocation to that state, translating to deprivations of services, infrastructure for the masses in those states. So 2025 is going to end. You will hear budget of 2026. Why can't we cut down budget and say this year we are working Spartanly? We must borrow. You have a debt that is piled up. You are borrowing more. It doesn't smack of administrative prudence.
Very, very true. John, just before we leave, I wouldn't know if you've watched the viral video of military officers going to electricity companies and offices to do what they know how to do best. We have a story here. Another attack on discos. The Nigerian military is lawless. Just a couple of days back, after visiting the Keja disco, just yesterday they went to Badagry disco to equally picket there. Do you think what they do is justifiable, knowing that the military barracks should be provided electricity without anyone going to ask them to pay? Does it really make any sense to you?
That is what happens in a country where there's no productive leadership. Ordinarily, ask yourself, is that the global world practice of military officers? Will you hear that militaries in Ghana, that is even our sister nation, will go to the discos and beat them up or harass them there? And that will also tell you how we have failed as a people and as a state and as a country. Ordinarily, that should not be the case. But in a case where the house is not in order, every Tom, Dick, and Harry can happen. That also talks about the fact that we don't have consequences for action. That's my second point. We don't have consequences for actions. Anything and everything goes in Nigeria. Until we get to that point where people are not above the law. Until we get to that point where people, are ruled by law. In Nigeria, the reverse is the case. It's about the highest bidder. It's about who you know. Even when you come up with a case, and the case is with a big giant, they don't care to even investigate to know if this is true or not. As far as this person is a big giant, they see you as somebody who wants to tarnish the image of the person, or you want to bring the person down without even going to have an independent investigation into the matter, if it's true or not. If it's true and it's found wanting, let him face the consequences of it. So we must become a state where nobody is above the law. And military officers should also understand that they are military men. We love them. We like the fact that they are our heroes. They lay their life on the war front. They try to guide the country, and they do all sorts of sacrifices. However, in the case of the sacrifices, when there are excesses, these excesses should be nipped in the bud. That also takes me to the fact about leadership, because it talks about the leader, how the head moves, determine where the body goes. So in this case, if there's an allegation or there's a video about some of your personnel that have done one or two things, what is the accountability measure that have been put in place? Because those people who went there are from a particular division, and they have a GOC of that division. And so that will tell you that nobody takes over from anybody. Everybody just do whatever they like. So it comes to the leadership problem that we have. As a country, we have a leadership problem. That same leadership problem translated into the military forum, and that's what you are seeing happening now. So I think at this point in time, it is empirically clear to everybody that Nigeria and Nigerians need a purposeful leadership, need an exemplary leadership, and need a leadership that can give focus and drive development and growth all across all our parastatals, including the military.
Very, very, very so true. Innocent, in 60 seconds, if you may. You're the son of a veteran. You understand some of these things better. I do not know. I stand to be corrected, though. I stand to be corrected. But do you think a typical barracks where soldiers live, where there are armaments, should at least be given that leverage, that opportunity of getting electricity, right? Because of the cooling station that's needed sometimes to take care of some of our ammunitions and so on. Do you really think that it makes a sense that at least they should be subsidized, or taking the bill totally taken away from them?
I think it's not a bill thing, it's a service delivery thing. And in Nigeria, efficiency is alien. If you are a disco, for God's sake, I don't know the government policy, I don't know what kind of transmission equipments are there. This is 2025, lights should be there 24/7. Nigeria at this stage, John is talking to us from Japan. John, I want you to give me a brief answer. Are there power outages from time to time there?
Never.
So why is that big deal here? Give the lights and give us bill. I don't know, John, if you are following. Give us light.
Yes.
Give us the bill. Now the military.
Well, they can't afford the bill. It's not the issue. Is not give us like give us
the
bill.
army people complaining about the bill.
No, they can't afford it because they are on band A. So most times,
okay, let me
they
ask.
can't afford
Were
the
they on
billions.
band? There should be no banding in. What bands do you have there in Japan, John?
There's no band.
There should be no band thing here. These are all corrupt mercantilism. You know. This is 2025, giant of Africa, whatever we are. If you open the internet, one little child somewhere has invented one flying balloon. One AI is here. In Nigeria, we are yet to take off with electricity supply. And if you are talking of accountability, the officers are not hiding. They went there to protest power lack of the disconnection of the SAM Esnan Air Force Base in Ikeja. Yeah. We can identify that. John mentioned about GOC. That's an identified location. The army barracks also did that. Now in Badagry. So look, in Nigeria, even when you are discussing equity, opinions will be divided. If you discuss this, if you ask me, in where John stays in Tokyo, immediately the army people will be dealt with, or immediately the discos rather will be dealt with partly for not delivering efficient electricity transmission. I'm sure before going to talk about whether soldiers are unlawful or not, there are pros, there are cons. The Nigerian government, this is 2025. This is 2025, for God's sake. If you take from just 1990 now, it's how many years? 35 years. If you hear how much annually government budget for electricity, 1990, 91, till you get here, if you total it, and total all the power generated to today, if you total it, it's a far cry from the budget.
Very, very true.
It's actually very whether it's privatized, whether it's disco, whether it's they are the other one. Give light and pick up your bills.
Very, very true. But we just have to leave it at that. Thank you so very much, John, for being here. We truly do appreciate you. Innocent, thank you as always for being here also. But this is just the first segment of our discussion today. We'll be right back with our main conversation. That is when we return. Tinubu declares a state of emergency, suspends the governor, deputy, and the assembly. That's in a bit. Please don't go anywhere.